Another court challenge to the August election and targeting transgender rights. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. We expect Ohio voters will go to the polls in August to decide whether to make it harder to change the Constitution. But we don't know for sure. We don't know for sure if the election will take place, and we don't know for sure what they will read when they get the ballot. Opponents of the move have filed two court challenges. One says the legislature cannot use a joint resolution to schedule an August election. That is now technically illegal. The other challenges the ballot language as being misleading. Jesse Balmert, what is the thinking at the State House? Do both of these cases have a chance? Does one have a better chance than the other? What's the scuttlebutt? What are the odds makers saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the Ohio Supreme Court, we have 7 members, 4 of whom are Republican, 3 who are Democrats. We have a new Supreme Court Chief Justice in Sharon Kennedy, so this will be an interesting test for her. And then Pat Fisher is another justice who has kind of made himself out to be perhaps like the fulcrum of this court, so we'll see where he goes. This could be a 4-3 decision along party lines, or it could be, 5-2, something like that. And
this is mainly on whether, after making August elections largely illegal, can they order an election with this joint resolution?
Correct. So the Ohio legislature is saying that they have the constitutional authority to set elections, and that is what they were doing in this joint resolution. The opponents are saying, no, you just passed a bill that was eliminating August elections in most circumstances. And so what you're trying to do is in direct conflict with something that you just passed. The lawmakers point to this 1970s Supreme Court decision, and the folks on the other side say, well, that's not relevant anymore.
Yeah. We should know in the next couple of weeks, right? We're supposed to start voting, Herb, on early July.
In the ideal world, a supermajority of the Ohio Supreme Court will say, this is wrong, you can't do it. But as Jesse said, it's a possibility. Each of the 4 Republicans will see this in terms of their own party's interests and not look at what I would call the constitutional or jurisprudential issues or whatever. But I think, in fact, both lawsuits have merit, but I'm not a lawyer. That's just an opinion.
If the ballot language one gets, they just go back and rewrite it. It's no big deal. They just have a new question on the ballot. They wouldn't just cancel the election because of the ballot language. They would get another bite at the apple to rewrite the language.
They could, depends on when it comes through. Yeah. But I really hope that the Supreme Court rules this unconstitutional to save my people from themselves. Because I sincerely believe that every Republican who voted for this is going to be hit with the same thing that hit the Dick Celeste Democrats who voted for the 1983 tax increase, where, except for Lee Fisher, due to his obvious political skills and fundraising ability, able to survive, the rest of them had no careers after that vote.
So you think the 60% threshold, changing the rules, is going to alienate an overwhelming number of voters, Republican and Democrat, independents in particular?
When I was in the Ohio House, I was ranked 7th most conservative, and I'll tell you flat out, this is not a conservative position. The citizens need a relief valve. Only if you trust big government do you deny them a relief valve. And for them to do this, this is obviously not a conservative position by them.
And not only is it 60%, they've changed the signature requirements, so you have to get 5% of the vote for governor in all 88 counties. Basically, they are ending this constitutional right that we've had for 100 years. And I think when conservatives think about it, they'll say, oh, wait a second. This really means more powers going to the state, to the legislature, and things like that. But people haven't yet processed that aspect of it. But it really is making the state and the central government much more powerful.
Jesse, if you look at the language, the arguments language that voters will see if this goes to the vote, both sides are using special interests. The folks who want the 60% saying this will protect the Constitution from special interests, but the opponents are saying, well, it's going to be so hard to get on the ballot. The only folks who can afford to do that are big-moneyed special interests.
Yeah, people really don't like special interests, but nearly everyone who works on a ballot campaign is a special interest. Like, you have a special interest in a topic, and maybe that's raising the minimum wage, maybe that's abortion access, maybe that's casinos. This kind of language is something that voters don't like. But even the people who are working against this ballot initiative were getting money from, millionaires, billionaires. So there are special interests on both sides of this issue.
Gene, we've had folks who support the 60% threshold, who also support banning abortion, say that the folks in the rural areas will provide the grassroots efforts to get this passed and also to win in November. You live out in western Ohio, rural area. What is the thinking out there, do you think, on the 60% rule, first of all?
I think that I have encountered nobody, even my neighbors and relatives, which is the same thing, who are very much about being pro-life. Their immediate response is, "What? This just gives more power to the government. I don't trust the government." And I'll tell you about the bond issue stuff on this. So on my first 45 minutes of driving into town today, I spent the whole time on roads that were built and bridges that were built and paid for by old issue 2 money, bond money that we won't be able to issue again. And this is going to really devastate the rural communities.
This is because, according to Ohio Constitution, the legislature can't borrow more than what, $750,000?
Yes.
You have to pass an amendment to the Constitution to borrow more than that, and now those will require 60% if this passes.
And we've not had one of those pass, I don't think. So,
But will your neighbors turn out? That's the question.
that is the question for this whole thing. Because if you look at the recent gubernatorial race, the rural counties had about 8-point higher turnout rate than the urban counties, which is why I was so totally wrong on my predictions that things would be much closer in 2022.
But that was a November election, Herb. This is an August election. It's a real wild card.
It'll be a miserable turnout, and turnout will determine the outcome. But think about this. Colleges will not be in session. Students will not be on campus by and large. So if you think of students as being a vote that would be more likely to oppose this amendment, having it in August is a good way to minimize the impact of a student vote. There's something so cynical about having such a major change in the Constitution decided at the lowest possible turnout election that you could have.
Mike DeWine came out in favor of this week. I guess it's not surprised. He's holding the party line. He's very, very much opposed to abortion rights.
Yeah, I'd say he was taking a lot of the talking points from the business groups that have supported this measure, saying that, again, back to our special interests, he doesn't want those to influence the Ohio Constitution. But he was very quiet while this was passing through the Ohio legislature, wasn't a vocal, out front person on this. So it's I don't know, it's interesting that he's now saying this now.
Gene, the person who is out front is the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose. He's a leading advocate for this. I guess it's always a conflict. The Secretary of State runs elections, supposed to be impartial, but he is playing a real active role in this campaign, as Secretaries of State have done in the past when they've run for governor or a different office.
Yeah, and I've said before on the show that I believe I like Frank, and everybody likes Frank, but I think Frank is getting some astoundingly bad political advice on this, that he needs to step away from this. He's trying to differentiate himself between Bernie Moreno and Matt Dolan in the upcoming U.S. Senate race. He's not announced. I'm not here to announce for him, but he needs to step back from this. It's just not going to help him.
It's a high risk, a high reward, perhaps, if it passes in August, the 60%?
No, I think actually, right now, no matter what happens, Frank's one of the losers because he had a reputation for being a straight shooter, really told it as it was, and now you can just see ambition written all over his face, and he's pandering. And he's trying to, in fact, say, I want to be in that mix for U.S. Senate, and I'm not sure this is the right way to do it.
And keep in mind that if it's a May primary, which they're now talking about, what is that now, 7-8 months away from the August election? No one's going to remember that.
Yeah.
All right. The Ohio State House is a front in the culture wars dividing the country. Lawmakers are considering 3 bills that target the transgender population. One would ban minors from receiving gender-affirming care. Another would ban transgender girls and women from competing on high school and college women's sports teams. And the latest would make K through 12 and public college students use the bathrooms and locker rooms that match the sex they were assigned at birth. Jesse Balmer, some of these have been percolating for a while. Is this kind of a package now? Is that how lawmakers are viewing this?
I mean, really, there has been a tremendous amount of focus on transgender children in particular in Ohio, and this must be an issue that, I don't know, Republicans are looking at polling and say does well with parents. That's the only thing I can say as to why we're spending so much time on it, especially during a budget season when we are, supposed to be focusing on passing the money to run the state. I think the one that's closest to passing relates to athletics and whether transgender girls can participate in female sports. That's something that was brought up last year and was tabled after some problematic language. So,
Is it polling, Gene, that 'cause there are 1.5% of Americans identify as non-binary or transgender. There are 6 athletes, high school athletes in Ohio that identify as transgender who participate on the team that matches their gender identity.
Right.
There's not a lot of people.
No, but now, so I was a college intercollegiate fencing coach, coached both men and women. Yes, it's a minor sport, okay, at a minor school, but not to insult Mother Miami, but it is. But they, and I coached them both. And if I had my best women face off against a mediocre man, he'd clean her clock. So the impact isn't on those 6, but it's everybody else that they face, and tends to get multiplied. And it goes to the core American issue of fairness. Is this fair? And the answer is probably not. And I follow Mayo Clinic on this, and they say it takes 5 years for the testosterone to thoroughly leave the body. And so there's going to be a long-term advantage for young trans on this.
But the NCAA has rules in place, as does the Ohio High School Athletic Association. They have protocols in place to protect the integrity of their games and their sports.
Look, you use the key word, culture wars. And this is not simply an Ohio issue. This is something that's happening nationwide. And we know that there are groups out there, conservative groups, right-wing groups, who in fact are pushing this because they see political advantage. They know that most citizens don't really even know what transgender really means. So they come up with all of these horror stories about, oh my God, the bathrooms. Could you imagine your daughter in a bathroom when a transgendered man comes in or whatever, or a woman comes in? And so it's really scare tactics to gain support. I think the most legitimate issue is really the issue about under what conditions do you provide medical treatment for people who aspire to transition. And there I think you want to make sure that you have the appropriate doctors, parental, and counselors involved. And you certainly don't want the legislature becoming the doctors, or in the abortion case, the legislature becoming the gynecologist, whatever. They really are overreaching on that aspect. In terms of sports, there is a question of fairness. But that is such a small number of cases, but that gets so blown up in terms of scare tactics to try to win votes for the right wing.
Just go ahead, Jesse.
I would say the person to watch on this could be Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. He's been pretty quiet on this issue, has not been out in front of it. Most of the changes his administration have made have been to prevent discrimination for LGBTQ workers, state workers, and so he has previously said on the sports that this is something that's already being addressed at the High School Athletic Association level. So if this bill is delivered to his desk, what will he do with it?
Yeah. Remember back in 2015 and 2016, Indiana and North Carolina passed their bathroom bills. Huge outcry. They canceled concerts. They threatened to move the Final Four out of Indianapolis, I believe. You don't hear that corporate outrage these days on these issues. What's going on?
Well, I think it depends on the corporation and the issue. And I think they realize that there are risks involved in taking on, particularly in Republican states with Republican legislatures and Republican governors, there really are major risks here. You know, for example, I don't think that Intel is going to get involved in any of these issues, but if they ever said, we have to come to a state that is welcoming of all people, and that's why we thought we were coming to Ohio, that it was a welcoming environment. But if in fact the environment in Ohio gets more hostile to gays, to trans, to a lot of other groups also, then we're going to have problems having people move from California and other places to Ohio and attracting people to stay in Ohio. But they haven't gotten involved in that. You're right, they have not said that kind of thing.
The parental rights thing, Gene, conservatives want parental rights when it comes to picking their curriculum in school, but yet they want to nullify parental rights when it comes to allowing for gender affirming care for minors.
Yeah.
How does those two things mix?
Basically, what the argument on this is, at its core, is we're seeing this play out also in the higher ed reform bills going through, is ownership. Who owns primary and secondary education in Ohio? Who owns higher ed? And, you know, Bobby and Betty Buckeye, the average citizen of the state, does not feel like they have any ownership of higher ed, primary and secondary schools.
Well, how can you argue that parents should have a right to pick the books but not pick the health care for their
Because
children?
pendulums always swing. That's it. That's what it comes down to.
All right. As Ohio and federal law stands now, 14 and 15-year-olds cannot work past 7 p.m. during the school year. They can work until 9 o'clock p.m. during the summer. And some state lawmakers want to allow them to work later all year round. A bill would urge the federal government to allow 14 and 15-year-olds to work until 9 o'clock in the evening during the school year if their parents approve. Business groups like the Ohio Restaurant Association say the extra 2 hours would help solve labor shortages in the industry. Opponents fear children will be exploited, and they argue the state and the country should not weaken child labor laws put in place in the 1930s. This is not a huge deal right now. 2 hours, they're not going to extend the maximum number of hours they can work per week. But should we be weakening child labor laws, Gene?
Probably not. It's not going to poll well. It's not going to look good on a TV ad. And if you really have trouble recruiting workers, you've heard me say this on the show before. Okay, fine. It's a free market. Increase the wages, and you can do that. Okay, and you know, I mean, on the farm, Dad put me to work at a young age with unwieldy scoop shovels, you know, with ear corn, and then baling hay and straw. I could have protested for higher wages, and that would have been no supper that night. but it comes down to, look, if you pay me enough, I'll go out and pick apples, okay? But you see what I'm saying? Yeah, you could solve this, but it's more expensive ways to do it.
Yeah, the Restaurant Association is being honest. They say they need labor, and they like cheap labor, so they're being honest. But
They also say this builds character.
yeah,
among young
that's
people.
where I'm going to go. The other advocates are saying, well, this is really good. It's going to build character. Young people will be working extra 2 hours a day. That's nonsense. I mean, I understand the need for labor, and we know that a lot of people left the left the labor force, and now haven't come back. Well, I think Gene's right. What else do you need to bring them back? Maybe higher wages, better benefits. Maybe you need better child care for those women who have left the workforce and can't come back now because they have children to take care of. So there are a lot of, but the notion that somehow, you know, this is going to solve a major problem, it'll give some industries cheap labor, and if they're honest about it, you know, and again, luckily it's the parents have to agree to that too.
Parental rights again, Jesse. This does have a chance of passing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The Ohio Senate just recently passed a measure that would reduce the age for police officer applicants from 21 to 18. So you do see this shift towards younger and younger workers. And as the state has one of its record low unemployment rates, I believe 3.7%, there is like a need for workers. But as the other panelist says, there's other ways of getting there.
It's more than just labor. There's a demographic shift. I mean, there are fewer people, you know, working age, period.
You wait till 2026, and then it's going to hit higher ed hard because we're short nationwide like 500,000 18-year-olds because no babies were born after 2008, 2009 because of the Great Recession there for a while. And so, yeah.
All right. Two more Republicans this week joined the race for their party's nomination for president. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis officially launched their campaigns. That brings to 7 the number of Republican candidates in the primary field. Of course, former President Donald Trump tops the list. While Trump easily beat Democrats in Ohio in 2016 and 2020, the state could play a role, perhaps, in the Republican nomination fight. Herb Asher, who would Ohio voters, they love Trump, but is there anybody else they might consider if they don't go with Trump?
Not yet. And in part, you have to look at the rules that the Republicans use to select delegates to their convention. Unlike the Democrats that have proportional allocation of delegates, typically in most states, the Republicans have winner take all. So all you have to do is come in first in the primary, and you get all of the state's delegates. So Donald Trump has to be really happy right now, because the more Republicans that enter the race, the more the vote is split. And so if he only gets 35% of the vote, but he comes in number one, he gets all the delegates. So I think right now, the rules of the game for the Republican Party really benefit Donald Trump, and the more candidates that join, the better off he is.
Ron DeSantis, Jesse, has been in Ohio a few times in recent months, seems to be working hard to, at the grassroots level, local Republican support level. Does he have a chance? Will any statewide office holder in this state say, I'm for Ron DeSantis and not Donald Trump?
Yeah, probably not this early, but I believe Ron DeSantis got a pretty welcome reception when he was in Akron, and then in Southwest Ohio when he made his trip here. But he's really trying to, thread a thin needle here. People who might be upset about Trump encouraging vaccine use, for example, or supporting Kevin McCarthy in the speaker fight, but that's just, it's a very tiny part of the Republican Party to try to get over that overwhelming threshold.
His personality, Trump's personality, still dominates Ohio Republican politics.
Yes. Personally, I prefer a more optimistic candidate like Tim Scott, John Sununu, who probably will announce, Asa Hutchinson. But I'll also tell you that I have to agree with Herb on this one, that, it's just going to be the donor class will have to step in, or I'd say right after New Hampshire, Iowa, somewhere through there, and they're going to have to tell all the also-rans, okay, we're going to go with that person and put all their chips behind that person to go off against Trump. Because I'll tell you, after January 6th, about a quarter of my Republican base will not vote for Trump under any circumstance. It's just only a quarter. He's still got 75% of my folks. But there's a quarter of us who go, no, we're absolutely under no circumstances will we vote for Trump on a ballot.
That's what we were waiting for in 2016, Herb. We all thought that the anti-Trump candidate, the more mainstream Republican candidate, would emerge, that the donor class, the establishment would coalesce behind one candidate. It never happened. John Kasich had dreams that it was going to be him.
Sure. Well, one thing is the Republican Party has changed, and that, in fact, at the citizen level, at the mass level, a lot of the Republicans that we would have thought of as moderate conservatives, traditional conservatives, they may not have become Democrats. They haven't done that. But they really have left the party in the sense that they now say, I can vote independent, I can vote, or I can call myself an independent. They didn't leave the party left them. So what you really now have is a base for the Republicans that is far more conservative and far more right-wing, and much more likely to support somebody like Donald Trump.
And smaller.
Smaller, yeah.
Which is bad for us, because it's the big tent. The biggest tent usually wins.
Yeah, except, right now the Republican Party has the U.S. House, and probably is favored to win the Senate in next year, and a good chance to win the presidency. So a lot of people don't say it's bad, and they're saying we can continue to go to the right and still pull out these elections, and maybe not, but it's you and I would agree that that a shrinking base is not a very smart move, but. But look at Ohio right now.
And an older base.
The other wild card, Jesse, is Trump's legal problems. He's under indictment in New York for the hush money. He was found responsible for sexual assault, and then we still have the Georgia election interference case, which could come out, July or August of this summer.
Yeah, I mean, to state the obvious, if he's arrested or convicted, that would be a problem for his presidency. But the mere allegations of these charges, the mere indictments, don't seem to be having an impact on that Republican base that we're talking about.
Yeah, it actually helped him after the indictment.
At least that core of 35% that he would need to win primaries in states. Yeah, they don't hear these things about him, or don't believe it, or they say, so what? Or they all do it.
Do any Republicans campaign here in Ohio
Yes.
before the primary?
Yes.
They don't just give it to Trump automatically.
No. I expect them to do so. And like I said, I've got 3, and keep in mind, Chris Christie is going to, and I can't take credit for this image, is going to light 2 sticks of dynamite and run towards Trump to hug him with the dynamite. Okay, now, this is not to be interpreted as a violence or anything, but we're talking about verbal dynamite. And it will be, Chris Christie is, he's a former prosecutor, and I don't want to face him in a debate.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. And Gene Krebs, you're up first.
So one of the reasons that Central Ohio has so many nice things is because you have a large, very big civic capacity. One of the reasons you have such a big civic capacity is you're able to come to an agreement on issues. One of the main mechanisms for that has been the Columbus Metropolitan Club. The executive director, Jane Scott, has retired after 20 years of very good and able service. I wish her well, and her husband Chris, and whatever she chooses to do next. But that is a key aspect of why Intel chose to come here, is because you all get along, and if you don't, you fake it damn fine.
Herb.
Governor DeWine has appointed 2 wonderful new trustees in Brad Caston and George Skestas Jr.
For OSU?
Well, for LSU Board of Trustees, yes. And I think that will be helpful to the board. It will be helpful in the process by which we select a new president.
And Jessica.
My coworker Laura Bischoff reported this week on 2 inmates who escaped from a Lima area prison, and they had a 27-hour head start, which I imagine we'll have questions about going forward.
Yes, Andy Dufresne only had about 8 hours in Shawshank up there in Mansfield. I will echo Gene's comments about Jane Scott in the Columbus Metropolitan Club. She has been a tremendous personal friend and also a tremendous friend to WOSU over her 20 years at the Metropolitan Club. And hockey fans, Blue Jackets fans, you have to like Sergei Bobrovsky. He's in the NHL Stanley Cup Finals with a chance to win that cup that he left Columbus for. Good luck to him. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue the conversation online. Watch us anytime at our website and the PBS video app. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.